Hello, freak bitches. You know?
Well, the other question is, how much of a vitamin do you need? And I think that people, buy vitamins indiscriminately because we really don't, like the average person doesn't need to take a multivitamin in the day if they're eating, a healthy diet, because you get pretty much what you need on a daily basis. If you're not somebody with an absorption issue, if you're not somebody with any dietary issues, you're generally getting what you need out of your diet. I think people do need to...
if your diet is really healthy. But most people do not have a really healthy diet.
Most people are getting about what they need out of their diet. Like
most people?
Seriously.
In America?
We
have some of the poorest diets ever. People are just eating processed bullshit.
It's even if you go to the doctor and get average person, I'm guessing you eat fairly healthy.
Yeah.
But the average person, if they go to the doctor to see if they're deficient on anything, they're not going to be deficient on anything.
I've been deficient. I've gone and gotten my blood work done several times.
Really?
I found I have deficiencies in niacin, deficiencies in vitamin D.
I've been before, but that was right when I was diagnosed with celiac disease. So I was I was deficient on a few things, but
so
that's
an issue with wheat, and you have an issue absorbing food.
Yeah,
right?
so I mean now that I've been, I was at the skinniest point in my life, and then I stopped eating wheat and I gained weight. So because suddenly your villi kind of they heal and you're able to absorb calories again.
I have a friend who's got a son who they was trying to figure out why he was so small. Like he couldn't eat and he was never hungry and he would eat and he would get sick. And
everything is miserable and
wheat. He's got a wheat allergy. He's got a corn allergy.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah.
And everything was just making him miserable.
Yeah, this poor little kid.
I got quote unquote lucky. I only got symptoms when I was an adult, and it was
So you ate wheat all throughout your childhood years, no problem.
No problem. And I was even overweight as a kid. So then when I was an adult, suddenly horrible symptoms showed up. How
does that work? What do they have an idea of what causes that?
Celiac can show up, or the symptoms of it can like you always have the underlying physiology, or and just all of a sudden symptoms can just show up out of the blue.
So it's like lying dormant, and then all of a sudden it becomes active.
I had a bunch of health issues just kind of show up in my 20s, and I'm like, all right, I got to start taking care of myself. Started going to the gym, ran a few marathons, lost a lot of weight, and like even when I was suddenly at a healthy weight, it was like I couldn't stop losing weight because my intestines just weren't absorbing anything, and that's not a thing you see coming. You're like, I'm at a healthy, why isn't this stopping? And it was not good. But eventually it was funny because the gluten trend or the anti-gluten trend had already shown up, and a doctor suggested to me, well, have you tried going gluten-free? And I'm like, oh, that's a silly fad. 3 months later, diagnosed with celiac disease. I'm like, if I hadn't been so skeptical of everything.
Yeah, I don't think gluten-free is a fad. I don't think gluten's the best thing for your body. I think that it's okay every now and then, but I think that essentially what you're getting when you're eating processed grains is you're getting something your body it's kind of alien. Your body doesn't exactly know what to do with it.
Well, here's the thing, tests keep showing there doesn't seem to be a problem with gluten if you don't have celiac disease. And
But what does that mean by a problem? Is it like for optimizing your health? Is it something that you should have in your diet all the time, or is it something that, it really does convert to sugar?
Everything converts to sugar. Your body converts everything in some way, shape, or form into usable fuel, and the usable fuel is, eventually glucose or NADPH. There's everything in your body gets converted to sugar when you use it for fuel.
But if you eat a piece of salmon or if you eat a bowl of pasta, there's a very different reaction how your body absorbs these two things.
Yes, this is true because all calories aren't the same.
Right, they don't both get absorbed to sugar.
But avoiding gluten and switching over to say, all rice isn't, that's not going to change all that much in your body in terms of the biochemical mischief, unless you have a gluten allergy. Like that's
but there are
not
levels
a gluten allergy, a
in
celiac
sensitivities.
disease.
But there's also levels to that too, right? Like there's some people where it's like minorly irritating, and there's some people that have extreme issues with it.
Here's at this point, and this is why I always say at this point in our scientific knowledge, because scientific knowledge can evolve and we can learn new things. At one point, the thing that started off the whole gluten trend was a kind of poorly designed study where they had a small sample size of people, and they designed it just to test, gluten gluten versus a diet without gluten. And they came to the conclusion that about 20% of people, just based on this very small study, had a bad reaction to gluten. Now,
that's pretty high.
And these people came in saying they had stomach problems. Now, these people, they looked at it and said, there's no, afterwards, the scientists all sat back and said, why were only about 1% of people having celiac disease, and then all of a sudden 20% of people are running around like gluten's making their dick fly off? There's something up here. So they made a better designed study, and they took out they did, kind of double blind, did a better designed study to say, we're going to take out all these other causes of gastrointestinal distress, and we're going to try to make this double blind. And they figured out it was the FODMAPs. There were these short chain oligosaccharides that can pull water into the gut and cause some gastrointestinal distress, and it was really closer to between like 1 and about 5% of people that were having any issues with gluten. Now the problem is that
what was causing that though?
The gastrointestinal stress in the 1 to 5%.
Yeah.
So 1% is celiac disease for sure.
1%.
Yeah.
Is
1%.
that really what is across the board with people?
1% is celiac.
That's really high.
That is fairly high. Now here's the thing: that higher percent of people, that 2 to 5. Here's the question. Now they're still trying to figure out why some people seem to have an issue with gluten. Now, I could be wrong on this. This is just off the top of my head. It's what I remember from the study, but I've had to cite it a few times, so I think my knowledge is accurate. Feel free to fact check me out at home. But the thing with those extra percent, they're trying to figure out why they might have an issue with gluten, because they, like wheat is, you think of it as a carb heavy thing, right? And gluten is a protein. So that other few percentage of people, they're trying to figure out why the gluten does it, because gluten is in a few other things. It's in barley, rye. So what they figured out is that, or this is the going theory right now, gluten can cause a small reaction in the stomach where you produce this protein called zonulin that can cause an increase in inflammation. This seems to be, and this has only been one study that I've read on it. It seems to be relatively new. They're still looking into it. So there's a chance that people might be in the 2 to 5% that can't handle it because of that. It could be another component of the wheat, barley, rye that's causing it. But gluten in and of itself, it's not, it's unless you are one of those people that has an actual reaction to it, perfectly fine. Go on to have, go have a sandwich. So, but, if you want one.